Welcome back, listeners. We are here again with Tim Schumer, the founder of Next Level Human Capital. And today we're going to be talking about some of the things that become very big challenges inside of entrepreneurship and companies. And that is going to be development. Now, Tim, there's many different reasons that people end up in their roles, right? So, you may be promoted into a role, you may be like given a role. There's tons of different ways that people end up in these roles, but sometimes they're not in a position that is the best for the company, but then also the person themselves, right? So, tell me about your 7 ways to know that this person's been misplaced. Manager been misplaced. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Dina. It's great to be back here, by the way. I love doing your podcast. Yeah, over the years we've all seen this. Anybody that's spent enough time in leading a company or owning a company in a position where they have a bunch of managers, you tend to get managers that are misplaced in their role. They either get promoted there, they might get hired there. More than likely they got promoted there. And there's always a whole bunch of reasons this is, but I have found that there are 7 constants that usually exist in some way. And one of the first ones that I like to look at is like somebody that rejects development. Oftentimes companies will come in and retrain managers, or they maybe promoted them before they put them through the training course, which that is its own right is a huge mistake. And sometimes training wasn't available at the time they got promoted, and 10 years later they bring it. So when you have a manager though that rejects development training or of any kind, that is a huge sign that you have the wrong person. Typically people that like to reject training, it's because they don't want to be exposed for the fraud they probably are. Or there's another kind of insecurity that sits there. They feel like their job might be on the line if they don't pass or something like that. And so rejecting development is often a big sign for me that you have a manager that has been misplaced in that organization. Again, the development piece is critical in any management role, and ongoing development is critical. Can you imagine if you had a pilot flying an airplane and the last time he was trained or followed up any training in that plane was in 1988 when he got his pilot's license? I got to tell you, aircraft and aviation has changed a lot since 1988. So I would hope he's flying and has been developed on the newest ways. It's the same thing in management. There's laws that change, there's cultures that change. What we are seeing in the workforce now, huge changes in and shifts in cultures and dynamic and how managers interact based on the presidential election cycle. That's how fast it's happening. There used to be a much further band between those kind of things, but now business cultures move fast. Technology has allowed us to change quickly and create new ideas. And just like right here, this podcast, people instantly have access to this kind of information all the time, new ideas. And so they're implementing them quickly. And that's a big reason to keep development at the forefront. And anybody that's not ready to do that, you probably should look at a different job for them. Another thing that I have on my list for things is insulating their duties. So that's just a really fancy way to say that they keep their job and everything they do in their job very private, close to the vest. Do not want people to know what they're doing. And again, this is actually an older tactic that we found in a lot of managers because they think that it keeps them valuable to the company. If nobody knows what they're doing, they can't get fired, right? Well, that's not true. You can get fired and I can figure out how to do your job. I actually had a client that did this and they hired me to reverse engineer the process. So there are people out there that can reverse engineer what you do. It might cost them a little bit of money, but it's not a protection layer, but it is a sign of distrust. It's a sign that they are not team players and it is not somebody that you would want have. You want people that are open. They should be ready and free because managers that are open about what they do and share that knowledge and make sure that it's an open book for everybody, it's because they are confident in what they do. And people that are confident and are good managers, they might be eminently replaceable, but they are also eminently employable. So they're never worried about that. And you don't want a manager that has that kind of focus because it means they're not focused on other areas. Another big thing is hidden decisions. I have managers all over every company I've worked at. I have this problem, and they will make decisions in secret. Similar to the duties part, their decision making becomes very insulated to them in the sense that they don't seek consult on big decisions. Managers are supposed to be able to make some decisions with some autonomy, and that's rightfully so. But when you're making a big decision about an employee going on a leave, working from home, exceptions to policies, anything like that is considered to me a big decision. You need to be open to consult internally with either your HR partners or maybe your boss up in management, because your decisions have impact, and sometimes hidden impact that you don't know. Just like your hidden decision, the impacts can't be known to every manager because they don't understand them. For example, if I make an exception to hire a person and give them 3 weeks of vacation versus everybody else that gets hired in at 2 weeks of vacation, well, you're setting a precedent and possibly a discrimination case because the last person that got hired didn't get that. They may not have asked for it. That's never the issue. The issue becomes when you create all these exceptions, you don't know where you started. Now you don't know what the precedent is. And so that's what's opening you up for a discrimination case. It's opening you up for a lot of issues internal. So your managers should be comfortable and confident to discuss out decisions they're wanting to make that are big. Making the decision to handle a harassment case by yourself, big no. Those are handled very specialized, and you need to involve other people in that. And I had a manager that did that one time. And it infuriated me because he compromised the company in a big. So you do not want somebody that's making these decisions in a vacuum by themselves and not recognizing when to seek help. That is an important characteristic for management as well. And another big sign is how you made the wrong decision. Defensive towards criticism. This one's actually pretty obvious. Most people, I think, know about this. When somebody doesn't accept criticism or particularly has to have a methodology.
Yeah.
Well, your methodology in criticism defense might be, well, this person doesn't do human resources, so their criticism can't possibly have any weight. This person's not an engineer. Their criticism can't be possibly have any weight. I actually experienced this at a town hall session where I was talking to the village of where I live because I was opposing something. And they actually asked me are you an engineer? And I'm like, no, but I'm not sure that has anything to do with anything because I can in fact read. So I knew the law that we were talking about because I could read. Right. So, people that defensive criticism because they're either threatened by or they're offended by the fact that somebody is coming into their area without any expertise. That is a sign of an insecure manager once again. And almost all of these relate back to the certain amount of insecurities. People that are insecure are not good leaders. They're not good managers. You probably have a whole bunch of employees on edge because number 5 on my list, resistant to accountability. These kind of folks tend to be friendly. They like being liked more than they like being respected. They care more about what people think of them as a person, and they will tend to avoid handing out accountability. And they also these are mutually exclusive. You can have one or both of these, but they can also be resistant to accepting accountability on actions they take. So either way works, but they have an issue with accountability and holding people accountable, especially people they like or perceive as maybe friends in the workplace. They don't want to do it. This is actually very dangerous amongst HR managers. If you have an HR manager like this, fire them right away because there's being friendly and being nice. You can always be pleasant, and you should be seeking respect from a professional level. But being liked doesn't mean people don't respect you. It just means you may not be their cup of tea, and that's okay. But conversely, again, when you're using that account or friendliness to justify or not justifying accountability, you're going to have a real problem because, again, you create a discrimination case. How so? Well, let me just tell you. When you hold accountable somebody you don't like, somebody you like does the same thing, you don't hold them accountable, there it is. A lot of people think that race has to be involved, but no, it really comes down to the business practice. They're going to look at your history of. And if your history is of doing this, it's just a matter of time before race or gender or creed or color or anything like that gets hit into the mix of it. And it won't be avoidable, and it'll be very costly error. Slack results. Number 6 on my list here. If you're a manager that is not producing the results that you were before you got promoted, it's possible that when you were doing that, I don't even look at it as a thing. In fact, some of the best leaders I've worked with were average performers on their best day. And that's because producing the results is important as a leader, but the results change as you climb the ladder. The result at the individual contributor level is to produce widgets and produce them correctly and accurately with little waste and push them out. If you perform that at that level and that's what got you promoted to being a manager, be prepared that may not have been the best selection because you did not look at potential. Performance without potential is a no-go scenario for everyone. And you would definitely want to have a manager that performs well, but they don't have to be the top performer. They should be the top potential person for that position. Somebody that can graduate to the next level. And it's extremely important to be able to have that in a manager because their results they're now producing are numbers. They have 10 people producing widgets. They're not responsible for 50 widgets. They're responsible for, hundreds of widgets. Those results have to be displayed from a management point. So again, then we come into got you here, won't keep you here. So you got to do something different. You got to reinvent yourself and you've got to be ready for development and not guarding yourself and keeping yourself open. Number 7 to me is the most important thing off this list, and that is entrepreneurial discount is what I call it. And that's to say that they discount entrepreneurialism. They don't care. They don't own anything. They're not an owner of their own process at all. They look at the company as kind of the divide between them and responsibility. And they easily will spend your money and say, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It's just $100." I got to tell you, every successful CEO I've ever met, worked for, or talked to, $100 is always a big deal to them. In fact, I remember working in the manufacturing industry, and I sat in a meeting and I was like, "Well, this is a thing we could do. It'll save us like $10 a month." And they were excited. And I'm like, "Really? It's just $10?" They're like, "Yeah, but if you could put $10 back into your bank account tomorrow, would you do it?" 100% you would. Is it a lot of money? Probably not. But I've learned over the years that a lot of money is all in perspective. A lot of money for a guy that makes $50 a year, $10, a lot of money. If you're making $50 a year, there's probably a bigger problem there. But if you put it in, think of somebody like Jeff Bezos, worth billions. Elon Musk, billions. Well, they feel the same way about $1,000 as you would feel about 10 because they didn't get there by not worrying about it, right? So entrepreneurial is a very big thing. That ownership, owning your position, any one of these things that you could do and keep focus will fill in the blanks for the rest of these things on this list, right? Entrepreneurial, if you can show and demonstrate entrepreneurialism as a manager, that means you have ownership. That means you're open to development. You do not guard your job. You are open to criticism. You make decisions with others' involvement and understanding so that you can make the right decision. All these things will fall into place. But it is important to watch out for these 7 when you're making those promotions, folks, because you could bring in the wrong manager, and bringing in the wrong manager is more expensive than taking the extra time to find the right one.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. What you're speaking and I'm like, "Whoa." Thinking about a scenario where, like, you have a manager that really just does not do confrontation well, and you've got employees that are not following the rules, and this pushover manager that is too afraid to speak up and say, "You need to follow the rules." It makes discord, and it really causes a lot of chaos in companies.
It really does. And it can happen for actually quite a while before it ever comes to your attention. It always will come to your attention. Timing may not be on your side though. A lot of this stuff can be hidden for short periods of time and for long periods of time in short doses. A manager that flies under the radar or maybe a lower level even, if they're trusted or they were well liked and their manager also suffers from accountability, which is also a lot of times the case, act as if, right? What's my boss do? Well, I'm gonna do the same thing. But when you have that lack of accountability in format, it creates that chaos and it can last for a long time before something bad enough happens. And this is where you get in trouble in the courtrooms and the lawsuits is that it happens for a long time. Nobody knew about it. All of a sudden, here we are looking at this big major problem. And then somebody comes and does a deposition and says, "Oh yeah, this has been going on for a couple of years now." And that you just burned yourself, right? The whole company, because now it's a pattern of 2 years. We had to deal with this has been going on. Now they're going to open up all your records and create all this chaos. And that's the scary version. The truth is, most times it doesn't escalate to that big, but you should always be aware that that escalation level does exist. There are a lot of companies out there that never thought it would happen to them, and yet it did. So you want to be aware that the probability might be low, but the possibility absolutely exists.
So you come in and you help companies clean up this whole situation.
I can. In a lot of cases, we absolutely can. And, I think we've talked about this before. I have this chief leader boss. It's an entrepreneurial management framework, and it's designed to kind of let's identify what we got here. And it's not that they can't be developed, right? That a chief leader boss is designed for a lot of things. Helps with org design. It helps with targeting development so that you spend the right money in the right places. And actually, all seven of these things are addressed in chief leader boss because you will have a forte, right? Your chief forte may be a few of these things you're good with, but others are more complicated for you. You can drill down into that though and find out. Your chiefs are going to be more likely guarded. They don't like to give away the secret sauce because they look at their trade sometimes as that's their secret sauce. And so it's sometimes it's not that they don't want to, it's that in their mind they don't feel like they can because it's their personal brand and it's personally connected to them. Chiefs, I like to train them and pull them out of that bucket a little bit and let them open up and realize that you're not owning a secret here. You're not guarding nuclear codes. What you're doing is developing yourself this knowledge. You're an artist, a craftsman of what you do. It's time to teach others how to do it because you're not forever. One day you're going to retire or you might win the lottery, but we still need to be able to build widgets and design widgets. And we need to teach somebody else how to do that so we can all keep going because if you win the lottery, I doubt you're posting a bunch of money my way. So it's one of those things to kind of keep in mind. And so that's what I like about my Chief Leader Boss program. The framework is that it can be used a lot of different ways. And we uncover stuff like this all the time. Just kind of using the model. Now, it's hard to say. Like some people get this model like, well, Tim, how do I use it? And I'm like, well, that's where the complication comes in. I know how to use it because I designed it and I work with it and I show people the framework and I'm like, in a simple concept, it is absolutely makes sense and they resonate with it right away. But surrender to the complexity of it at the same time, which is, we continue to develop Chief Leader Boss and use it for different things. And so while we do that, we try to update like, okay, how do we explain this? How do we give the tools? How do we create the training? But because it is one of those products that's basically constantly evolving, we're constantly updating it. So by itself, it doesn't probably help everybody, but bring me into the fold and I'll show you how we use it and you can do for your organization to get your managers in a focused path. Because I truly believe that these three elements in management, chief, leader, and boss, being able to take yourself to that level is going to make you the most effective manager in any organization. Being able to switch between the hats is the hardest thing to train. Being able to show that you have a forte, but you also have a burden here. Some people don't get to develop those burdens. They'll never will, which is okay. We teach that in organizations. Like it is okay that you have a burden. It's okay to be a little guarded as long as you can be developed out of it. And I think that kind of comes with number one, right? Reject development. If you're not willing to be developed, kind of the rest of this is a moot point. That's why number one and number seven are placed right where they're at. Number seven's most important, but number one, without it, you got nothing else because then there's no room for improvement, right? You can't even make them better. They're already shut down. So if they are open to development and they have all seven of the rest of these things, we can probably bring them out a little bit of comfort zone and bring that to light.
Yeah, I really resonate what you're saying. And as a multipreneur, somebody who's had multiple businesses, right? And worked in nursing background. So there was a lot of management, a lot of directorship, right? So being in the throes of a lot of supervision, you don't know what you don't know. So having you come in and be the eyes and ears for all the people involved, I really feel like it just lends such a different type of way to really elevate the leadership. And that is what you do. You come in and you make things so much better with your knowledge and your skills and raise up leadership, developing their skills. And that's what's so profound is like everybody wins.
Absolutely. And I love working with all my clients. Sometimes they'll come in with a different, they'll tell me what they're thinking, and I'll kind of maybe uncover a little bit of what they're not thinking about. We use evaluation tools of all kinds. Chief Leader Boss is one of them. I have other assessments. One of the things I did recently, it kind of speaks to the fact that we come in with a non-judgment, right? We're coming in to help your company. We're not
And just bias. Yeah.
and yeah, on an extreme level, managers that have these seven issues, we always say, yeah, fire them, get rid of them. Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. But we want to really understand it too. Because if we can fix it and develop it, then that's the best case scenario. If we find out that there's no help here, then yeah, sometimes you have to let someone go. You might have to demote them, or you might have to put them in a different position. I recently did an assessment battery for a client that I had, and it was really profound because normally we give assessments prior to promotion. Well, this was a scenario where they were like looking at doing more development. They wanted to be able to assess their managers and understand and kind of create a program like a pilot. And so we did this, and I did a bunch of assessments on like the 10 pilot people, and a couple of them had really low scores. Now, the assessment we did, it wasn't the chief leader boss, it was more of a cognitive aptitude and a behavior. What they wanted to understand is like, can my managers do the job and will they do the job? Well, that's exactly how this assessment was designed. It answers those two questions. Cognitive aptitude lets us know that, hey, you can do the job from an academic point of view. And the behaviors, will you do the job even if you get it? We had a couple people, they bombed out on the illustrate part of the assessment, which is more behavioral. And when I explained it to them, I kind of pulled them aside and I sat them down and I said, listen, it isn't to say you can't be a manager. We know you can because you scored high on the cognitive, but it's saying here that you don't want to be a manager, and talking them out, kind of drawing out the information from, they kind of came to and said, you're right. I'm really more of a subject matter expert, good at this job, but they were not trying to climb the ladder. Managing people, being the face of an organization, that is not for everybody. And you don't want to force it, but people are told the only way you're going to make more money is to elevate yourself in the chain of command. And so one of the things I like to do with businesses is bring in, this is kind of more of a European, Latin America thing, where they value greatly SMEs, subject matter experts, and they create positional paths. And that's what I like to do with some of my clients is like, think of your valuable talent as exactly that, valuable. They maybe never will be CEO or director of, but they probably know more about your products, more about your services, and more about managing the projects that go along with them. That is important to have. They don't have to manage people, but you want those subject matter experts to not only feel valued, but give them a path to elevate and separate them from the direct management path. These are some of the advices that I've given and I've seen proven and work. And they're loved and adored usually by the employees because they're relieved. Some of the managers you get are not there because they want to be. And that's why these 7 things are identifiers I look for to try and draw that out. Like, well, let's find out first. Do you want to be here or not? Because you may not want to, you just want the money. Well, we can give you more money and not interrupt our management chain of command here, right? And not put people under you that may be worse off because of it, right? And so those are the different things that I like to do and get really involved with my client and understand what is there for them. And that's why I produce a lot of these tools that we sometimes give away for free on our website, because these are all little things you can do to make those subtle changes that make a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're stating, in the long run, this saves a company money because you're not
Oh, yeah.
putting people in the wrong positions and then regretting it later, make the staff's lives miserable and then cause a whole bunch of churn. Like
Mhm.
there's so many things that happen when the wrong person is in the wrong position. And it's like, let's do us all a favor. Just take the assessment. Let's just determine where you're at, you know?
Yeah, there are tons of tools that are out there. Consultants usually have them available. And what's great, one of the things I've told somebody asked me like, well, why would I use a consultant when I have people in my in-house? I'm like, well, your in-house people are smart. There's no doubt about that. But they're also connected to the environment and they have a stake into it. I don't. I come in and give it a very clean look from the outside in. And I'm not oblivious. And I know because I was a corporate HR person, right? I know I at my most valuable time at any company I ever worked at was the first year. And that's because I didn't know anything. I haven't been through, you have to go through that business cycle, especially when you're at that director VP level. Like it takes a whole year to kind of onboard, if you will, because you got to go through the year ends, the quarterly meetings, all the monthly financials. And like you get into a routine of it. It's just a different way of looking at the environment. But after that second year, you become stagnant and you're oblivious to the environment around you because everything becomes routine. You're used to it. Somebody like me is not used to it. And so I pose the question that you're not asking anymore because it's so normal, right? You might walk past a stain on the carpet every day you go into the office and never think anything of it. Whereas I'm going to walk in on day 1 and be like, why is that stain on the carpet, right? It's the same concept. We just get we kind of get in tune with our environments that way, and that's natural. So it's good to look at external help to kind of look at, even if it's just to help kind of identify some of the things you might need. And you might have people inside that can employ it all, but they may not know where they need to start. And that's a skill you can get from an outside consultant.
This has been so illuminating. I so appreciate your time, Tim.
Absolutely.
Listeners, go to Tim's website. We'll put it in the show notes for you. Get on his books. If you have questions about HR, he is phenomenal at helping you understand what your role can be in guiding your teams through whatever transitions or challenges that you're facing. And he has such amazing tools on his website that are complementary and very eye opening for you in moving forward. So, thank you so much, Tim, for being on today. We appreciate you and your time. We're going to go ahead and give you a bonus with this, and we're going to have a link below that's going to have the 7 different development styles that Tim talked about today as a download for you. Okay. And so you can print that off and have that to kind of look at, and that'll be at your fingertips. So thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already. We so appreciate you. Thank you, Tim.